everyone, this is Kelly of Gypsy Biscuit, formerly of Cowbell Studio. Previously I was doing paper dresses and paper corsets and various other paper projects, and today I have evolved into creating junk journals, repurposed home decor projects, and textile dolls, maybe even some wellness products. Gypsy Biscuit is a farmhouse, so it's basically an umbrella of all of my eclectic interests. And today, what I want to introduce is the Boho Betty series, where we will tap into our inner gypsy and create this book. This is going to be built from the ground up, basically cutting out our panels to adhering our cover sheets and everything in between. So as you open this up, it's got side panels on both the front and the back, and all of our projects will be created and designed to fit within these areas, size, everything. So what I want you to do is tap into your inner gypsy as you're creating these, and this can be a place where you collect all of your ephemera, where you collect your inspirations, your writings, your thoughts, anything that you might want to keep within these junk journal pages. So, what else can I say about this? Except that it's a fun project to make, and I think we should get started. I thought I would take just a minute to talk about supplies that you're going to need for this project. Just the basic, more obvious ones. A pencil for tracing. I like using mechanical pencils. A couple of bone folders. This has a flatter edge to it, which makes furnishing large surfaces a lot easier. But this is going to be good for the gutters of our book to kind of really get in the creases. This could be used for that purpose also. I like having both. A pair of scissors. These are microtip scissors, and I find that they give me a lot of precision cutting than some of the other clunkier scissors that are out there. A stylus for scoring. I'm not even sure where I got this. I've had it for a long time. It says Low Cornell S51. So feel free to do a search on that. I have this We Are Memory Keepers Quick Stick Precision Pickup, which is good for picking up things like score tape, which is basically a double-sided tape that has a backing, and once you put it down on your paper, you need something to kind of help you peel it up. You could use a blade, you can use a stylus. I find this is less likely to cut than a X-Acto blade, so I like using that. I've got this, which is it's 6 inches wide. It is a double-sided tape, good for covering large surfaces. This is Elizabeth Craft Designs, and I got it on Amazon. I will leave a link to all my supplies in the video, the bottom down there, the video description. What else? Extra blades. I got this, and it's got 200 blades in it. So there's some on this side too, but they're all wrapped up. 200 blades. I like using X-Acto blades. I've been using them for years. I find there's some control and precision in using an X-Acto blade, but feel free to use a trimmer. Those work as well. And Fabri-Tac. I like Fabri-Tac for smaller areas. It dries quickly and it holds great. So feel free to use whatever tools you have found that work for you. If you're using an X-Acto blade, metal ruler. are going to be your friend. Plastic rulers are too easy to cut into, and I've done it not many times, a few, and then decided that the metal ruler was going to be it for me. And this is a stainless steel 18-inch ruler, and it's got standard on one side and metric on the other, and it has a cork backing on it. So I like it. Keeps the cork backing keeps the ruler from slipping. So let's talk about chipboard for a minute. Chipboard is great. What you are looking for in a chipboard is going to depend on how thick you want your book to get. And chipboards, I would not purchase chipboard based on the description of medium, heavy, or lightweight, because it does not tell you anything. I have seen chipboard that says medium weight that is actually heavier than something that called itself heavy. So what you're looking for is a point size. The board that I happen to be using is 50 point. I've seen 30 point. I've also seen 22 points. So the smaller the point size, the thinner the board is going to be. Now keep in mind that when you start applying adhesive and you start applying cardstock to two sides, you're going to add thickness onto your book, and you're going to add strength to it. So what I am printing my images on is a 65-pound cream cardstock. It's not too heavy to work with and wrap around these boards. So, you know, the heaviness of your cardstock is going to factor into how thick your board is as well. So if you're using an X-Acto blade cutting mat, obviously going to be good to have. And I think that about covers the basics, and anything else, you know, feel free to embellish as you go along. If you are downloading files from my Etsy shop, you're going to see some basic items, basic but necessary, so basic necessities, we'll call it that. These are your measuring templates. They're already sized for this project, and you've got a template for your front and back covers, a template for your two side panels, your center spine, and your two side spines. So basically what you're going to be using these for is you're going to be tracing around the outlines on your chipboard so that you have your panels, and we'll get to that in just a moment. You're also going to get something that looks like this. You're going to have 4 of them, and they just have lines on them. These are going to help you immensely, and I will show you how to use these guides. They're basically placement guides that help you place your spines and your boards on your paper so that they come out looking beautiful and gorgeous and perfect every single time. I think that people find it helpful to know that they're placing things correctly, and I just want to take some of the frustration and the guesswork out of where to put things, because I know it can kind of get daunting to be watching somebody else do something who's done it enough times to know where they're going and what they're going to do with it, and you are left wondering, oh my gosh, how do they do that? How do I know if it's right? Anyway, these are going to help you a lot. So I hope you will enjoy using them, because I know they help me. Okay, so that said, I'm going to assume that you all know how to use your trimmers and your X-Acto blades and whatnot. I don't think I would recommend using a trimmer on chipboard. Depending on what kind of chipboard you're using, I think that the chipboard I'm using would be a little too heavy for a trimmer, so X-Acto blade is great. One thing about X-Acto blades is the blades dull So it's always good to have these extra blades around. The tips break off. If the tips break off, you know, it's going to start ripping up your paper if you've ever used an X-Acto blade for any length of time. All right, so on to the templates, the cutting templates. I have a particular sized chipboard that may or may not be the same size as your chipboard, but my approach to this is I like to maximize my space, which means that I want to get as many pieces on a single board as possible in order to minimize the amount of waste that I get. Now for this particular one, I can fit one cover piece and I can fit both side cover pieces. So if I flip that and do that, so that tells me that I'm going to need to get a second board. My spines are going to fit perfectly fine. So, and what you want to do is butt these right up against each other, and that kind of helps minimize the number of cuts that you have to make. So one cut to separate these versus two if you did it without doing that kind of thing. All right, so to cut these out of chipboard, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because again, I'm going to assume that you are adept at cutting things and you know what you're doing. Tracing an outline pretty much means exactly that. You're going to line this up with the edges of your board. You're going to take your handy pencil and you're going to trace a line like that. And you see you've got an outline. I need 2 of these, so I've already got all of my other boards cut out. I'm just going to line this up. And then boom, excuse me, boom, boom. I've got another outline. And with a thicker board, you kind of want to go shallow. So if I'm taking my ruler and lining it up with my line over here, then I don't want to push down real hard right away because I know that this isn't going to go all the way through. If it was a thinner paper, then yes, it would. And the sharper your blade, the fewer passes you're going to need to make. So let's see how many passes I need to do this. And you can kind of feel the board start to separate away. Yeah, almost. There you go. And then these little corners, you just kind of work them a little bit. You should have a valley in here that's deep enough to catch your blade, and you shouldn't have too much problem just cutting it like that. So there we go. And then I only have to make one cut to separate these. Easy peasy. Well, several cuts on the same line. How about that? All right, just about there. All right, so I've got my front and my back covers. I've got my two side panels. I have my center spine and I have my two side spines. So once you have got those cut out, you can take your side panels and your spines and set them aside, and we're going to work with our covers. And you'll notice that your cover pieces have these triangles, and this, I left them on there because it's just easier to just take your blades and along all four sides and worry about snipping these little triangles off later, and you'll see why they are there. Okay, so my front cover, we're working with that first. You're going to notice that the covers have a border on the top, the bottom, and the side that faces out away from the spine. The spine side is going to line up with your chipboard. So when you turn it over, when you glue it, you might be wondering where in between this top and bottom to place your board for the best placement. And to do that, I am grabbing this guide, and you can use either the right or the left side for this particular one. And what I want to do is I want to transfer these two lines from my guide to the back of my cover paper so I know where to lay my board. And so all I'm going to do, this lines up, it's the same length from top to bottom, so I'm just going to line it up on my paper at one side, and I'm going to draw a little tick mark there and a little tick mark there, and then I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to do the same thing for this. I'm just grabbing these two lines here, so a tick mark and a tick mark, and then I can set the guide aside. I basically don't need it. And then what I want to do is I want to connect those two tick marks that I just made. So these two lines are going to show me where to position my board. I already know that it's going to line up with the left edge, so I don't need any more lines other than this top and bottom placement. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cover my board with adhesive, and I'm going to use this Elizabeth Craft Design tape. So I find that if I unroll it a little bit, I can get it to go flat and it's easier to use. So you don't have to painstakingly line this up with an edge. Basically, erring on the side of having some overlap versus painstakingly lining it up is preferable, especially if you're new to this. It does take a little bit of getting used to. I've made some interesting mistakes using this early on, so give yourself a break if you don't get it exactly right the first time. And then I'm just going to, trim off any overhang. Set that aside. And I like trimming off. I have a little bit of overhang. I do like trimming it off. I think it's a matter of personal preference. Generally, if you know there's going to be some more, if you're going to be folding paper over it, it's probably not as important. I don't even know if important is the right word. It's not as big of a deal to trim it off, but I like getting it out of my way, so I choose to trim. All right. And so now we've got a little bit extra to deal with. Now it gets a little bit trickier when you are applying the adhesive to the surface rather than the surface to the adhesive. So, you know, you can carefully do this. I found that sometimes when I'm doing this, it sticks to my cutting mat. Yeah, that's super fun to try to get off. All right, so that worked out pretty well. Now I'm just going to flip it over so that I can trim this. And one of the nice things about having some of these not match up perfectly is it gives you the opportunity to make some little scraps. It gives you scraps that can be used later. So it's not like you can really, you know, line up your ruler and get that off. Okay. I'm going to grab my cover sheet and this, make sure that you know which edge you're applying because you don't want to line this edge up. It's going to mess you up. So I'm going to flip this over. I know I want to line it up with this edge, and I usually like to have the edge that I'm lining up in front of me. So I'll just go ahead and remove my backing. There we go. And then I find it kind of easier to angle this a little bit. And it's easier for me to line this up side to side. Ooh, that was close. Line it up side to side, so left to right. And I'm just positioning it in between our two lines and lining it up with this edge. So I can see this. I think this is going to be pretty darn good. Yeah. All right. Lay that puppy down. And I can burnish this like that. Now at this point, you can snip off the little triangle things. So just go ahead and do that. I could do this with my X-Acto blade too. All right. I like to score this just a little bit along this edge. I'm not going to push very hard. And then I can apply adhesive to that edge. So I'm going to see if I can do it this way. Okay, so I've got my tape on here on that side flap, and I can remove my backing. And then I've scored it, so that's going to help me flip this up. And then you're going to notice these two little triangle pieces that are kind of hanging over. What I like to do is, it's kind of like wrapping a present. So you just kind of bend those areas down. I have a little bit of adhesive on this side, so I'm just going to take that backing up a little. And then press that in place. And then we can go ahead and fold down, adhere and fold down these two flaps. And I think what I'm going to use is I'm going to use this tape for that. If I had a scrap piece of paper if I had a piece of scrap adhesive of the other kind, I would use that. I mean, it's great. So, and just trim off my excess. Sometimes the angles of these match up, which can be nice. Right. And then we can remove our backing and adhere those pieces into place. Score it a little bit. And what those little corner pieces do is they give us a finished corner. So basically you want to do the exact same thing with the back cover, and I think what I'll do, I'll go ahead and do it on camera, but I'm going to speed up the footage a little bit just as kind of a recap.